Be intentional about everything in life.
But hello, this is Be Intentional with Chesca. You're welcome to Be Intentional with Chesca, and apologies for the delay in coming to your screen. As I promised, it was going to be 5 p.m. UK time, but we've had some technical hitches and we're not able to get it uploading in time. So please forgive us. But I am excited this evening, very, very much excited. And today is the day that we talk about the encounter with cancer. I have previously in the week been putting posts out there talking about cancer and some people's journey they've been through and their experiences on cancer. And I'm honored to come to your screen. I'm actually honored to have you spend time with me, but most importantly, we have our guest with us, and I'm going to tell you just a little bit about themselves, about who they are and what they do as we get ready to listen to them. I'm very honored. Thank you very much, Dr. Nyimzi Edujemfi and Dr. Gifty Sunkwa Mills, for joining us this afternoon. It's just a pleasure to know that you have dropped everything to be here, to be intentional for us to talk about cancer. God bless you so much. I will start with Dr. Nyimzi Edujemfi. She is, I know Dr. Nyimzi for how many years? About
so many
years. For many years. At least I can count
10.
14 years. Yes.
Yeah,
More than 10 years.
Definitely.
And knowing her, she's a very kind person, and she's the type of person who makes you feel welcome. She's the type of person who makes you feel that I understand what you're going through. She's full of empathy and passionate about women's health, childbirth, relationships, and family. She's a medical doctor in the US, and she's a medical doctor by profession, but a mom by calling. That's how she chooses to describe herself, and that's such a beautiful thing to hear. She's married to Pastor Kwejo Edujemfi, and I'm honored to have you here, Dr. Nyimzi, because most of the people that I want us to speak to or to interact with tonight, most especially, are people who belong to the household of faith and people coming from Africa, because when it comes to cancer, it's a new ball game altogether. When it comes to cancer, we don't know where our faith comes in. It's quite a difficult battle. So it's such a pleasure to have you on, and it's also a pleasure to have Dr. Gifty Sunkwa Mills. I've known Dr. Gifty since 1996.
Yeah.
I can't believe we are talking about 2000s now. She's such a sweet soul, a sweet person. She worked as a consultant with the World Health Organization and the Center for Disease Control, and currently pursuing her PhD in public health, focusing on strategies to reduce the occurrence of healthcare associated infections in Ghana. She is a member of the Faculty of Public Health, Ghana College of Physicians and Surgeons, and she is a member of the Medical Women Association of Ghana as well, and also a strong advocate for breast and cervical cancer. Not long ago, she was all over in Ghana campaigning for cervical cancer smear tests to be done. She was that passionate about it. And I'm so honored to have you on, Dr. Gifty Sunkwa Mills, sorry. So we're going to just set this rolling because our time is fast spent. And it's such a pleasure to have you all on this evening. It might be afternoon in some part of the world, but yeah, it's great to have you on. So we're going to talk about cancer, and I'm going to start with Dr. Gifty Sunkwa Mills. Gifty, what is cancer? We hear it most of the times, and initially, personally, growing up, I thought it was a thing that belonged to some group of people. Mm-hmm. But then as we grew up, I realized that it happens to anybody.
Yeah.
I never knew it could happen to young children. I thought you have to really be old. But then I grew up and realized it's happening to kids. It's happening. And the thing is, especially in the day we are in, lots of people, lots of loved ones we know are being diagnosed very often with cancer, and the rate at which is increasing, the rate at which people are being diagnosed is quite worrying. What is wrong? What is going on? Why cancer? Why is this such a difficult battle to fight? Please feel free and tell us what your views are.
Yeah. So thank you, Chesca. Just a brief overview. All living things are made up of cells.
Okay.
These cells are the smallest units of life. So as we said here, our bodies are made up of millions and probably trillions of cells, which are grouped together to form the tissues and then the organs. So, we know the organs are muscles, bones, lungs, liver, etc. But cancer basically starts in the cells.
Okay.
And is characterized by the development of abnormal cells, which divide uncontrollably. And these cells, in turn, have the ability to infiltrate and destroy the normal body tissue. So that is why cancer has the ability to spread throughout your body. Now, healthy cells usually have a specific life cycle. They reproduce and die off in a way which is determined by the type of cell. But once there is a cancer, it disrupts this process. And then there is an abnormal growth of these cells. And this cancer could be caused by changes or mutations in the DNA. DNA exists in the individual genes of every cell, and it has instructions to tell the cell what functions to perform, how to grow, how to divide. Mutations sometimes occur in the DNA, but usually the cells would correct these mistakes. When these mistakes are not corrected, then the cell can become cancerous, because then the instructions get mixed up. Then these cells begin to form lumps or tumors, and these begin to spread throughout the bloodstream, the lymphatic system, to other parts of the bodies. Now, in a percentage of cases, one could be born with some kind of mutations, but also there are gene mutations that occur after birth. And this is where environmental factors could come in, and also risk factors, things like exposure to radiation or carcinogens, viruses, and lifestyle issues, obesity, diet, lack of exercise. These are some of the things that can come in and then trigger one to develop a cancer. But let me say importantly, that I said tumors could form, but not all these tumors are dangerous, so to speak. We have benign tumors and malignant tumors. The benign ones usually will stay in one place in the body, and then usually would not be life-threatening. Of course, as they grow large, they can cause problems when they press against the neighboring organs or tissue. But typically, benign tumors are not life-threatening. The ones that we are very concerned about are the malignant tumors. These are cancerous. These ones will invade other parts of the body and move through the bloodstream and the lymphatic system, a process we call metastasis, and go to other sites in the body. So when a cancer is advanced, usually it would have metastasized from where it started to other parts of the body. And that will make it typically hard to treat and also potentially fatal. We may have heard of several terms, clinical terms, by which cancers are described. You probably heard carcinoma, you probably heard sarcoma, which has to do with the connective tissue, the bones, the muscles, etc. You may have heard of leukemia, which is typically to do with the bone marrow. You may have heard of lymphoma, myeloma, which has to do with the immune system. So there are various kinds of cancers because our bodies have numerous, cells within. But typically, where a cancer starts, how we name cancers. For instance, if a cancer starts in the ovaries, or so then you would hear of ovarian cancer. Or if it starts in the breast, you would hear of breast cancer. So cancers are typically named after where they start. So even if it starts in the bladder and eventually metastasizes to the lungs, it is a bladder cancer.
Okay.
That is where it started. And then it can infiltrate other parts of the body. Children also, cancers affect children, they affect adults, and children typically have leukemias. That's something that most people who deal with childhood cancers will tell you about. Cancers of the bone marrow, the blood, very common in children. Acute lymphocytic leukemia, acute myeloid leukemia, ALL or AML. These can cause a lot of pain in children, bone and joint pain, fatigue, weakness, bruising, fever, weight loss, a whole range of symptoms. So cancers can affect both adults and children. Yeah.
Okay, before you go on, you talked about mutations do occur.
Yeah.
In a layman's language, what are mutations? What is
that? It's just like a change.
Okay.
So like I gave the background.
Okay.
A cell has a way it's supposed to function. From time to time, something changes. Normally, there will be an autocorrection. The body has its own system of fighting things. A correction, it gets correct. Something changes, it gets corrected, and then the cell continues to function. But when this process does not happen as it should, then we know that, okay, we are getting into trouble here, because now we have tumors forming. We have the body responding in different ways. Then we have the normal cells being invaded by the abnormal cells. So something that could start locally, before you know, it's affecting the neighboring cells and pushing its way into the system. Yeah.
Right. And I remember you talking about environmental factors, risk factors, and even lifestyle, obesity. Yeah. So how is it that some people may have lifestyles that are very healthy, yet, healthy as we know it to be, and yet can get cancer, and some people can live life anyhow, any day, and yet they might not get cancer. And then to think that a child who is not old enough for you to consider as having had any lifestyle can get cancer. How is that possible? How does that happen?
Yeah. I'm glad you said lifestyle, healthy lifestyle as we know it. Yeah. But then again, generally and broadly for cancers, we talk about two broad classifications of factors.
Okay.
Modifiable risk factors and non-modifiable risk factors. And knowing these factors is important because it would help you to live a lifestyle that decreases your cancer risk. And I said decreases your risk. There are some which are just unexplained. Scientists have not found the answer to everything, but generally these things guide us. So when we say non-modifiable risk factors, there are things that you cannot do much about. For instance, when we talk about breast cancer, we often say that if you have a family history, your close blood relatives have had it.
Okay.
In a way, it should make you know that you have to be checking yourself from time to time.
Okay.
You have to be more cautious, have that awareness. And if you have also had a personal history, if it's occurred once, there is a chance that it could occur again. Age, gender are things that vary for various cancers. Some age groups are more at risk for some kinds of cancers than for other cancers. And of course, gender, because when we talk about breast and cervical cancer, being a woman is a risk factor. Just being a woman, that alone. The fact that you're a woman, you have a breast, you have a cervix, is a risk factor. If we talk about prostate cancer, being a man, that alone, is a risk factor. And then, of course, after a certain age, the risk is more significant. And then the genetic factors. like with breast cancer, we talk about this BRCA thing that puts people at risk, and for other cancers, there are other genetic, considerations. These are non-modifiable. It's good to know your family history just so that you can be careful. But at the same time, for most factors, for most cancers, the things like your diet, lack of exercise, being overweight, alcohol, smoking, radiation exposure, these are broadly classified as modifiable risk factors. Because if you are prone already, for instance, and then you indulge in any of these things excessively, then it's like you are creating the right condition for the cancer to have its way.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Maybe you might add something to that.
yes. I would ask my last question before I let her in.
Right.
And you said it could be genetic as well. Now, in terms of us Christians and Africans, it's very easy for us to. I remember there were times that you go to the doctors and the doctor is asking about family history, and we want to kind of not tell the doctor because that is admitting that is is in your bloodline, let's call it that way. And so you don't want to, but living in this country, I realize that it's actually important the doctor gets to know that you have this history, and then they could guide you as to the steps you can take moving forward. But as a Christian doctor as well, how, I don't know how to say, but where is the line being drawn where you are not confessing? Because if it's genetic, it's genetic. I mean, we can't bury our head in the sand thinking that, no, it's not going to happen. It happened to your father. And I come from a family where my dad, most of the members of the family died from cancer. So it is there. And it actually means that you have to take precautions. Yes, we're going to trust God to see us through, but you have to put things in place. So at what point do I not come across as admitting that there is something wrong in the bloodline? And at what point do I have to admit that it's genetic, so I need to take precautions?
It's important to know your family history because knowledge is power. If you have been to the doctor, one of the things you would know we commonly ask you is your family history. We almost always ask. And this is in your own interest. Because when I know, for instance, that, it's not only for cancers, but for many other conditions. If I know you have a family history, then I know how to treat you as an individual patient. It will affect the kind of tests I would want to conduct for you. It will also affect the kind of follow-up visits I will schedule for you, how often I would ask you to come and get checked, because I know that if maybe your mother had it, your twin sister had it, your grandmother had it, then it already tells me that I have to keep an eye on some parameters or some lab tests where you are concerned.
Right.
If you hide it from me and make me think that everything is okay, I may not be as, vigilant, or I may just use a different regimen or approach for you, which is something I would use maybe with a normal low risk population. At the end of the day, we might miss it. Or catch it a bit too late. And now, in these days and times when there are so many treatment options, it's an advantage to the patient or the client to be able to make use of them to diagnose early or catch the disease at the earliest possible stage, where it can be treated and almost completely cured, rather than wait much later. So you are not confessing to anything or admitting anything by knowing your family history and letting the doctor know, but rather you're helping yourself and helping the system to help you.
Helping yourself and helping the system to help you.
Yeah.
That explains it all. Dr. Nimzi, what's your take on it?
Yeah, for Dr. Mills has said everything, especially the part about the genetics. Sometimes without having been exposed to anything, you're born with it, it's in your blood. So you could get a cancer because your family has it. And also one other thing is that smoking makes every cancer worse. So smoking is the worst thing you could do for yourself in any situation, because it's going to make the cancer develop faster, develop early, and kill you quicker. Yeah, so that's the only thing I wanted to add to that part of it. And one thing I want to bring to the fore is that people should not forget that doctors, many of us have become doctors by the grace of God. It's God who gives us the grace to become doctors. So that attitude of when I go to the hospital, I need to speak in faith is good, but it's not helpful, because you have a reason for coming to the hospital. You prayed at home, you prayed in church, and now you've decided to come to the hospital. So as you walk into the hospital, you pray, but you focus on the medical aspect, because I believe that human beings, the Bible teaches us that we're a spirit, we live in a body, and we have a soul. So you need to take care of all the three aspects of your existence. So when you've taken care of the spiritual aspect in church, and you've taken care of the spiritual aspect at home, and even as you walk into the hospital, you're praying that God will give the doctor the wisdom to know exactly what is wrong and be able to help you figure it out. Because there are a lot of people who walk around with their ailments without any solution. They've gone to places, but nobody is able to diagnose them. It takes the grace of God to diagnose. So when you walk into the hospital, it's important that you be honest and upfront. Tell the doctor everything that he or she needs to know, because sometimes the doctors are Christians too. So it's not like you're being carnal by sharing everything. But after you've discussed everything and the doctor has run the test and everything, you go back and you pray about it. So it's very, very important that once you enter into the hospital, let's deal with the medical aspect of the issue. When you walk out, let's continue praying. Let's do both. Let's take care of the spiritual aspect. Let's take care of the body, and let's take care of the soul. That is our emotions and everything else, because our mental health also affects everything that we go through. Yeah.
Wow, let's take care of the body as well. Come to think of it, as Christians, our bodies are the temple, our God's temple. So if we're not taking care of it, we're destroying the temple. It doesn't matter. Somebody was telling me a story of a woman in England who didn't want any treatment, had breast cancer, and actually she was in a good place. They really could have done something about it. And she said she came into this world very whole. And so even if it's going to kill her, she would rather want to die whole. She wouldn't want her breast cut off. Yes. And she was believing God to the latter. In the end, it turned out that she didn't make it. And yet our bodies are the temple of God. So if we are going even out there to do any ministry, we're going to go through the body. And so this body has to be taken care of. Thank you so much, Dr. Sunkwa Mills. I need to ask you about this. Precautions, practically. Because from what you've told me, some of them are literally unavoidable. You can avoid to some extent, but you may not be able to avoid completely, especially when it's genetic. And so practically, with our lifestyles and everything, what are the practical measures? I think you mentioned one where we have to be going for checkups and tests very often, but what other thing can we do?
Yeah. If you followed me from the beginning of the year, I've been speaking very passionately about breast cancer and cervical cancer.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to cervical cancer, for instance, I mean, it's one of the few cancers in the world that actually have a vaccine for it. You know, you could get
a vaccine.
I've been talking about it the whole of January in the cervical cancer awareness month.
Well.
Yeah,
Wow.
so and I think it's one of the things that every woman, for instance, should take advantage of. I mean, do the pap smears and the test and other things. Get the vaccine if you can. When it comes to breast cancer, I've always said that your breasts are yours. You should take care of them. You should know your breast. In the same way, know your body. When you know your body, when something changes, you are like the first person to notice. I mean, whether you're a man or a woman, you know, it's one of the most basic things you can do. I mean, I've seen people who have had maybe just something on the skin, you know, it's been there, it's growing bigger, it's getting darker. I mean, how could you not be concerned that suddenly there's a stranger on your skin which is growing, spreading, coloring? You should love your body and look out for it on a monthly basis. You should examine your breast. When there's a lump, you should be the first to notice. If you have pain, which is not usual, don't just take painkillers and say it will be all right. I mean, I have seen people who have presented so late because they have just been doing the self medication thing over and over and over. So, taking care of our bodies is so important. Keeping a healthy weight, you could always check. We have the body mass index chart, the BMI chart. With your weight and your height, you can tell whether you are in a good range or you are obese or overweight or not.
Wow.
Keeping healthy, staying active for at least 30 minutes a day. These things, we have heard them over and over. And sometimes we probably get tired of hearing them. But are we doing them? I'll probably be telling you things you have heard over and over again. But the thing is that, are you taking the steps to do them? Are you at least attempting to have a good balance of vegetables in your diet? Or you're just grabbing canned foods and processed foods off the shelf? I mean, look at your shopping cart on a typical Saturday when you go to the supermarket. What are you buying? So little things like that are the things that will help us and save our lives. And also know your family history so that you know where you stand. Talk to your mother, your father, your grandparents. Who has had what? What should I be concerned about? And these things apply not only to cancers, but a range of other conditions: diabetes, hypertension, the common things that people have every day. So we owe it to ourselves to really, really take good care of our bodies and take advantage of visits to the doctor. At least every year, have yourself screened, have the various tests done to see if at least is something shooting up or is something going too low. Just have an idea. I hear people say, "Oh, I'm a testimonial. For 5 years now, I've never stepped in a hospital." I think the real testimony is when you go and everything is normal for 5 years. Then you say, "Oh yes, God has kept everything well with me for 5 years." Let's do that for ourselves.
Wow. Wow. So basically, it looks like it's just a matter of being intentional with the way you live.
Being extremely intentional with the way you live. I've only talked about the physical issues now. Even your emotions, you should guard your emotions. The other day, I heard somebody saying that just as we are being asked to do social distancing, you are entitled to your emotional distancing. You don't just allow anybody into your emotional space to annoy you. I mean, if somebody is getting you angry all the time, I mean, you are entitled to your emotional distancing. Even in relationships, you should not engage in risky behaviors, because safe sex or not practicing this in itself can cause a whole range of other diseases and make you vulnerable to some cancers. When we talk about, the human papilloma virus, which is sexually transmitted and which can cause cervical cancer, genital warts, a whole range of other things. So it's a whole package of self-love and self-care.
Package of self-love.
Yeah, it is. It really, really is.
Wow.
And when you can, by all means, get vaccinated when there is the opportunity to do that.
You were talking about the emotions. Has it got any connection with cancer?
It's interesting, but I have read the accounts of people who have been through cancer, who have survived cancer, and then suddenly they come to a point where they want to protect their emotions. Why? That is how it is meant to be. It is in that soundness and peace that you find healing. You know, it's like people who have been diagnosed with cancer discover something that
We
most
don't
people
discover.
haven't.
I'm
Exactly.
telling you.
It's like they discover some freedom. Suddenly they realize that, wow, all this life, all this freedom, all these things I want to do, let me do them now. Let me make myself happy. I have always wanted a house by the beach. Let me get it. I was reading a book by Benny Siegel, and there was a story about this person who had cancer, and then remembered, look, I've always wanted to live by the mountains. Let me just buy a house by the mountains and live and enjoy the beautiful views and everything. So this person, of course, moved and was living by the mountains. At a point, there was no news from the person anymore. So what's up? Is this person dead? And nobody told me about the funeral. So a few phone calls later, this guy comes up and say, well, so I moved to the mountains. I was having such a beautiful time that I forgot to die.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. So we owe it to ourselves to do the things that we always want to do, the things that make us happy. I mean, there are people who look at their lives and it's like you're always tired, you are fatigued, you are stressed.
Yeah.
You just keep weakening your immune system with that level of stress
right.
and fatigue and being on the run and being on the edge and the emotional roller coaster. It just does more harm than good to the immune system, which is supposed to help you fight diseases.
Wow. So it really matters how your immune system looks like.
It does.
I mean, what you're saying is so true because at least in my lifetime, within the past 5 years, I've come across about 6 or 7 cancer patients who survived. And
Wow.
it was like, it mattered how stable they were in the mind
Exactly.
and in their emotions. It was so important. I mean, they literally guarded their emotions with their life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And every time I speak with them, that's exactly what they say. And then they kind of come across something that is so important that we never realized.
Yeah.
And the little things in life that are so important that we overlook.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, why does it have to take cancer
Yeah.
to make you see this? Unfortunately, if you don't make it, then you don't even get to live the life you've discovered.
Yes.
Whereas now that there is nothing called cancer in your life, you could just have the fun, you could do what you have to do, you could put the people who are stressing you on the bench, you could just move on. Oh my goodness. We will come back to you, Dr. Sukwame. Now I want to come up to Dr. because we are talking about emotions. I want to come to Dr. Edu Jemfi about this. Nimzi, I need you to tell us, like, practically, how does a person going through cancer, what is the person's emotion, soul? What is it like? What are their daily struggles? Every day, what do they go through?
Yeah. Usually when somebody's diagnosed with cancer, the commonest thing is that they'll go through the stages of grief.
Okay.
First, they'll deny that they had the diagnosis. They'll think that, oh, I was dreaming, it wasn't true, it cannot be me. And then they go to anger. God, why me? Why did this happen to me? I'm faithful. Or somebody else who's not a Christian may be like, I've been healthy, I've done the things I needed to do. Why is this happening to me? So there's so many stages of grief. They keep going in and out of it. And just like we said earlier, most of the time when you speak to people who have survived cancer, the most important thing the common thing that you find with all of them is that they made up their mind that they were going to beat it. They
Okay.
determined that this is not going to have the best of me. I'm going to fight. I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to follow whatever procedure or whatever remedies that are out there. And I'm going to will my body to come along and get better.
Well,
So what I realized is that the emotional state that you're in, the support that you're able to get, and you yourself have to come from a place of, I'm going to beat this. I'm going to win. I will get better. And the treatment for cancer is horrific because cancer cells are so ingrained in your normal cells that to subdue cancer cells, the chemotherapy and everything subdues your whole body. So you would have to go through a process of dying, so to speak, to get to the point where the cancer has been subdued enough that you can move on with life and then get healed again. The treatment for cancer is brutal. And the other thing is that when a cancer is found early, that is the best thing that could happen to you, second to you not having cancer at all. When it's found early, the treatment is much simpler. Usually, it's surgery to remove the cancer and prevent it from spreading. That is why it's very important that you do the regular checkups. If you have access to healthcare, you have access to regular checkups, you should take advantage of it. Do your regular mammograms, your regular pap smears, your regular blood tests, just to follow up with your cancer profiles and make sure that nothing is going wrong anywhere. And one thing I also wanted to share was that cervical cancer is one of the saddest cancers that I've seen happen to anybody because usually the women die like in their 30s, early 30s, mid like like early 30s, 30s to 40s, that age bracket.
wow.
And you can imagine they have young kids at that age. They may be like married with like just married. It's like in the prime of their lives. Many adult cancers kill people like later. Let's say something like prostate cancer, 50s, 70s, 80s. But cervical cancer, usually the people I've seen die from cervical cancer, it happened in their 30s. And it's so sad. And getting to the end is so like it's so demeaning because it takes you through some physical issues that I don't want to go into details. That makes it difficult. But cervical cancer is one of the simplest things to test. You get your regular pap smears. If there's anything going wrong, it's remedied and you're fine to go. So I believe that if you take advantage of the regular screenings, you're doing yourself a huge favor because it's going to be caught early and it's going to be remedied before it gets to the stage where the treatment has to be like very strong to the extent where it subdues your body before you can heal and then move on and heal. Yeah. So that's about
Wow. Wow. I like the statement you made. You will your body. And I'm glad you talked about the fact that the process for treatment almost feels like it kills you first. Because from what I have observed, that is what people are scared of. And so some people even decide that I'm not going to go for the treatment. But it's good to know that what you see that people go through is what they have to go through to get better.
yeah.
But having said that, I must everybody go for treatment
For
depending
me,
on
I
every
think
stage.
yeah, for me, I think it's for one, it's medical. If the cancer is found at a later stage, like stage four, late stage, sometimes nothing can be done for you. So at that stage, you don't even have the option of going for treatment. So you might just have to accept what's going on, make the best of the life that you have left. And in most hospitals, they'll make you comfortable, give you anything you need to make you less in pain and less sick. But then it's like everybody's waiting for you to die. And then if it's found in the early to middle stage, treatment is very good and is able to heal most cancers. Early middle stage cancers, most cancers have a very good chance of getting like complete remission, being healed, not spreading. But like the middle to late, that is when it becomes a decision. You don't know if it's too late to go for the treatment, or you don't know if there's still a chance. That is when it depends on the person themselves, whether they choose to subject themselves to chemotherapy because it's going to hit you hard. So you choose to be strong, take the treatment, and take your chances. And no doctor can give you 100% assurance that this treatment is going to work or not, but they're going to try anyway. They'll tell you your chances based on the type of cancer that you have and the type of treatments that you're undergoing. So they'll give you what the picture is. You have a 70% chance of survival, you have a 50% chance of survival, you have a 10% chance of survival. You decide. So will I take the 10% chance, or I'll just be happy with my faith? Everybody's going to die anyway, so I'm just going to be comfortable and go. Or the 10% I want to fight for it, I may be one of the 10%. So it becomes a personal decision as to whether you want to fight for your life at whatever stage that you are. But it's easier to decide to fight for 70% than it is to fight for a 10% chance. But it's still a personal decision. Somebody can fight at 5% and win, depending on their faith, depending on their mental health, mental state, depending on the kind of support that they have. It also takes a lot of money to fight cancer. The drugs are expensive, the treatments are expensive. It takes a lot out of your pocket. So sometimes finances also become a huge part of it. And so it's sometimes beneficial that you reach out to organizations that have been set up to support people going through cancer so that they can support you financially, that you are able to even afford your food after you've had treatment, or you are able to afford your home after you have gone through treatment. So those are some of the things to look at. But basically, it becomes a personal decision.
Personal decision. Thank you for that. I'll come back to you again, Dr. Sunkwa Mills. Like Dr. Nyimze is saying, it becomes a personal decision. Is there ever a right or wrong decision then?
There are a number of questions you should ask when you receive that news about having a cancer. You should ask, what type of cancer are we talking about here? What stage is the cancer? There are people who are told they have cancer, but they have no clue what stage the cancer is. Because that alone helps you to make that decision. You should ask about,
do the doctors not tell them? Are the doctors not obliged to tell them what stage?
Doctors are supposed to tell their patients. And if that does not happen, the patients are supposed to ask. So that is why I'm saying that these are questions you should ask your doctor if for any reason the information is not provided. So the type of cancer, the stage of the cancer, the additional tests you're going to need. You should ask about the treatment options, because there are so many treatment options, ranging from surgery, chemotherapy, radiation therapy, and then you also have to be told about what to expect from treatment and the potential side effects of each treatment. And the objectives of treatment depends on the cancer and how advanced it is. So are we treating to have a cure? For example, if it's at the very early stage, are we hoping to cure this? Are we hoping to provide primary treatments to kill the cancer cells, which have been identified? Is it a case of adjuvant treatment for cells which remain after the primary treatment? Or is it a case where you need palliative treatment? Because like Yimzi said, it's at a later stage, and we could only relieve your symptoms, relieve your pain, just to ensure that, you whatever days you have are spent without much pain and trouble. So these are questions which are important for you to ask. And as I said, it's difficult to say something is right or wrong. Some people don't want any of these medical treatment options. Some would want to go for alternative medicine, acupuncture, hypnosis, massage, yoga, meditation, relaxation. People want to make choices in these times. what is important is that they make an informed choice. So give them all the information they need, allow them to weigh the pros and cons and think through it and decide what is best for them. Of course, I mean, me being a doctor, I would advise you come for the surgery, no matter what. Just have the surgery, have the chemo, have the radiation therapy. The effects they will not be pleasant. The effects will not be pleasant, like Yimzi has said. But when people are educated, they are empowered to take decisions in their own best interest. I mean, like I said, at the point where somebody has a diagnosis, they go through so many emotions, anger, denial, frustration, depression. These are expected. Allow them to go through it while they think through the decisions. Some people remain in denial for a long time. The good thing is that for most people, by the time you've taken them through the workout and you're ready to start treatment, at least they have started coming to terms with it. They have gone through the denial phase and the anger phase, and they are beginning to accept that, okay, this is the way to go. This is how I am ready to do things in my own interest. So we need to respect their decisions, whatever it is, but we need to give them the information they need to come to that decision.
Yeah. But for some people too, I think there is no time. There is just no time for them to weigh and make that decision. Because if the stage you are requires that you need to start treatment ASAP, then the person doesn't get to weigh things before making that decision. So the person ends up making a decision like, no, then I'm not going to have it because I've read online this, I've heard stories about it. And come to think of it, chemo, like you said, it does it put a lot of pressure on the body as well, So I know you're doctors. I know this is a silly question to ask, but does it work? Does it work? Because
it's no silly question.
does it work? Does chemo really work? Because I've seen people who did it and it worked. And I've come across people who did it worked, and then the cancer came back in about less than 2 years or in 2 years. And when they actually realized it's come back, they were told, it's come back aggressively, that there is no treatment. It's so aggressive, there is no treatment. And I'm thinking, you just had it not long and you actually had an all clear. What does that all clear even means? Because most of the times I hear people having all clear and in less than 2 years they have it again. So why? How does that work?
As Dr. Mills said earlier, once you've had a cancer, there's always a chance for it to come back. So once you've had it and it's gone into remission, you're giving times to come back for checkups. You could be given like 6 months, let's see what's going on. 1 year, let's see what's going on. If it looks good, let's do 5 years. Let's see what's going on. You have to keep checking in case it came back. And one thing that I'd also like to add is that a lot of people have a lot of expectations of doctors, which is good. But the truth is that we cannot play God. We can only do the best that we can. It is God who brings the healing. Nobody can guarantee you that this chemo is going to heal you. All you're going to say is that we've done this in a million of cases and the results have been good. And the results are never 100%. So if you go through this, your chances are good, but they are not guaranteed. And we're going to do everything in our power to make sure that you come out of this, but we cannot guarantee your life. Wow. So it's up to you to take your chances and do what you have to do. And it's up to the doctors to do the best they can to give you what you need. But nobody can guarantee you 100% result. They can only tell you this has worked well in most cases. It has never been 100%, but it has worked well. So it's worth doing it. And it's a matter of life and death. Would you take your chances or would you give up? That's what it is.
Yeah. And it's totally different pictures for different people, because we are talking about different kinds of cancers which are diagnosed at very different stages. I know somebody who had to have about 10 surgeries within a space of less than 2 years, because a cancer was detected, had to have a mastectomy, which is, taking away of, whatever, the breast. And then,
Yeah.
of course, in these times you can have a reconstructive surgery, if you can afford it, and if you want to construct, reconstruct the breast. And this person also had, another cancer in another part of the body. So it's like dealing with the breast cancer and another cancer, going for surgery after surgery. And at a point, you just have to decide, or tell yourself that I'm just going to do this. And there are days when you probably wake up and you don't even have the appetite and the strength for anything,
Oh.
and you can only take one day at a time. Sometimes you have to allow people to help you, because you have different challenges on different days. It's a tough journey. That is one thing which cannot be denied, no matter what we are dealing with. That from the diagnosis onwards, it's a very long and cumbersome journey. And you need all the support you can get. I believe you're going to talk about support
Yeah.
in a bit, so let me
Yeah.
not take
Yeah,
that.
but we will go to the support in a bit. But before we go on that, Dr. Nyimzi mentioned about cervical cancer and
Yeah.
how early, with the age range, how early you can get it. So this is your area. I want you to tell us about cervical cancer. To start with, how does anybody get it? Why does it happen? Why that age? And what can we do about it apart from going for your test?
So with cervical cancer, about 99.7% of cases are caused by the human papilloma virus. This HPV virus is essentially sexually transmitted. So when we talk about risk factors, one of the things we talk about is early age of sexual intercourse. Once you are sexually active, it's already considered a risk factor.
Please, what is early age?
Well, now
The world has changed.
The world has changed. I don't even know what age the youth are starting anymore. But at least mostly adolescents, teenage, I
Okay.
guess. Yeah, once you start early, early exposure, and also when you yourself when you have multiple sexual partners, that in itself is an increased risk. And if you have a partner who has multiple sexual partners, that can also be a risk. And as I have said, you screening. Now screening, it's available, widely available. You go get it like now if you haven't, because we've been talking about this for so long. Get screened, get the pap smear done, or get the visual inspection, VIA test, visual inspection and acetic acid done, so that if there are any early changes, it can be detected, or you take the vaccine to prevent it. Between exposure to the HPV virus and development of the disease, it can take a very long time. For some, it could be 10, 15, 20, 25 years later before you get the actual cervical cancer. So
Right.
we can only buy time while we have time by taking these measures that we have talked about.
So are you most likely? Is it likely they can find it? Talking about the fact that it can take 10, 15 years time. Does that mean if you are able to do these smear tests in time, you'll be able to it will, I don't know what to say, but they can identify that you are possibly going to get cervical cancer in the next few years. Are they able to
Yeah.
Oh wow.
These tests look for changes in the cervix. So
Yeah.
when there are early changes, they can be picked up. But once you do the test and it's normal, save yourself all that. Get the vaccine. and
Oh,
yeah,
I'm
and then
actually
continue
glad
your
to hear.
regular
I didn't know about
checks.
the vaccine. I didn't know about the vaccine, and so yes, it goes to show that today we are all learning
Yeah.
something on here. Yes, I didn't know about the vaccine. I'm really going to look into it
Yeah, but
ASAP.
both
But
boys, both boys and girls can get the vaccine. So your teenage daughters, your sons can get the vaccine. It's available.
what is the vaccine for then? Because if we're talking about cervical cancer,
So I
how?
said I said that it's sexually transmitted.
Transmitted.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay,
So in effect,
If
you
a
are.
boy has it, he'll give it to the girl. So
Yeah.
the boy needs the vaccination too.
really?
The human
Yeah.
papilloma virus, there are so many different types. It's the type 16 and 18, which are mostly associated with the cancer of the cervix. There are other types which can cause like genital warts in men and other kinds of cancers and diseases. So the HPV can do a lot of damage in both sexes.
Yeah.
Wow.
And one more thing with HPV, when the boys have it, they are carriers. It doesn't do much to
Yes,
them,
yes,
except
usually.
for maybe like the genital warts. But when they have unprotected sex with girls, they're able to transmit it to them. And the earlier you have sex, it's like your cervix is still developing, and growing cells are most vulnerable to like getting mutated. I don't know if I'm making it clear now. Yeah. So if you're having sex as a 9-year old, 10-year old, 12-year old, 13, up to about 16, 18 years, that bracket, if you're having sex during that time, 16 is a bit old, but below 16, if you're having sex in that bracket and you get infected with HPV, the insults to the cell start. And as it has started then, but 10, 15 years later, you are 32. If you had sex at 15, 10 years later, you're 25. 15 years later, you're 30. So what started at age 15 is going to manifest fully at age 30. So when you start doing pap smears, maybe at age 20, if you do a pap smear, they'll see that the cells have started changing. What they do is remove the cells that have changed and stop the progression right there. So the earlier you catch it, the more likely you're going to get treatment. But if you didn't know pap smear, you had sex at 15, you got infected, you didn't know, the boy was carrying it, you didn't know, you're walking about, you're fine. At age 30, you start seeing signs. With cervical cancer, by the time you start seeing signs, it's already too late. It's already almost too late because it's been 15 years. The disease has had the time to develop fully. So
God
that's
have
what
mercy.
Emil was talking about. Yeah.
Thank you very much. People have questions on Facebook. I'm going to read them out and then we can answer them before we go to our next session. But let me ask this question whilst we are still on the topic of cervical cancer. He talked about the fact that when you have multiple sexual partners or you're sexually active at an early stage, you're most likely to be in that bracket. The question, I think we've lost Dr. Gifty Sunkwa Mills. We've lost her. I'm sure she's going to come back in.
Yeah.
Now, the question I want to ask before I go on to the questions we have on Facebook. Thank you all for joining in. Thank you, lovely people. Honestly, I'm glad to have you on here. And as we're talking about, if you haven't had a smear test in the last 3 years, in the last 5 years, please let us be intentional about this, because today we are actually getting to know that it's something that can stay for a longer time without you knowing. And then there is the other side of it, that it can actually be detected quite early, even before it develops into something. So, and there are vaccinations as well, which we've just learned today. So on Monday, I would advise everybody start booking for your vaccination and going for your pap smear test, and let's get rid of let's just nip it in the bud before it gets out of hand. Dr. Nyimzi, what I want to ask is, for a person who didn't have a multiple sexual partner, and for a person who wasn't sexually active at an early stage, yet had cervical cancer, What happened? How did that happen?
Yeah, that's the dilemma. Back in medical school, our professors used to say that the bad girls get cervical cancer and the good girls get fibroid. It's like, like Dr. Mills was saying earlier, when you get infected with HPV, it could be at any stage, right? But with treatment options and in trying to arrest the cancer, you trying to look at the most vulnerable group. So it doesn't mean that outside of below 16, you cannot get human papillomavirus infection. You will still get it, but you are most vulnerable at an early age, that is below 16. You can get it any time of your life. You understand? So outside of that, you can still get human papilloma infection and it can still start to develop cancer, but you are most vulnerable at the earlier age. And also, if you have sex with somebody who has multiple sexual partners, and the bottom line is that the more sexual partners you have, the more likely that you've been infected. Yeah. So maybe you didn't have sex with multiple sexual partners, but the partner that you had, that one partner that you had sex with somebody who's had like 1,000. So it's like it's a log of all the sexual partners you've ever they have ever had.
Wow.
All the times that they've had sex with somebody who's been exposed so many times, you having sex with that person one time exposes you to all those exposures, so to speak. So you may not have been a bad girl, but that one person you've been with was a bad boy, and he did you the damage.
Wow. Wow. Thank you. Good to have you back, Dr. Sukwa Mills. We lost you.
Yeah.
I hope everything is okay.
Yes. I just lost internet connectivity.
Oh, apologies. Yeah. Good to have you back. Thank you so much, Dr. Nyimzi. I was talking to Dr. Nyimzi about the fact that you both mentioned that you could be vulnerable because you've had multiple sexual partners, or you had an early, you were sexually active early. But in the case where somebody finds themselves not having had multiple sexual partners and not having been sexually active at an early stage, what could be the reason? She's giving us her take on it, and we would like to hear what you have to say as well. And then we can read out the questions we have on Facebook because people are asking questions.
Yeah, I think you remember I mentioned 99.7% being caused by the HPV. So there is still a small percentage which could occur in people irrespective of whether they have been sexually active or not. So then it's better to be fully covered. Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Wow.
And also when we talk about sex, it's not just genital sex. It could be oral sex. I mean, whatever forms that sex could come in, and a few times, other non-sexual means, sex toys, undergarments, surgical instruments.
Really?
So there is always that window which you just have to make sure you're covered to be on the safe side.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I'm going to read. We have a question here from my big sister Sandra Woody. She says that why aren't women going for their smear test? What prevents them? Is it lack of education or is it faith issues? In your experience as doctors, what has been the reasons people have given for not going for tests?
In the recent cervical cancer campaign that we did, I mean, there was a day where we had screening for both breast cancer and cervical cancer. And one woman came there. We did the breast examination for her, and we needed her to position herself and take off her underwear for us to do the cervical pap smear. And you should have seen the reluctance, although we're all women. Like, she's like, do I have to remove my underwear? I'm like, oh, yes, of course. I mean, we can't take a test if you don't. And she's uncomfortable, she's shy. And eventually she said, well, she's not ready. She would come back later. So there are people like that who just think that, but I keep telling them, look, we don't even remember your cervix or your private parts. we see so many. So there's no cause to worry. There's no cause for alarm. for some people, they genuinely did not know, when we started the education, some just did not know about it. So they were happy to hear about it and they were willing to come forward to get tested. What was a challenge for some was the money involved. It's not that expensive, but some people
Cannot afford it.
Cannot afford it. So the visual inspection and the acetic acid is relatively cheaper. I think between 25 cedis and 40 cedis, you can have it done. The pap smear is a little more expensive, but if you have either of them, it is fine. So education is a factor, personal shyness or reluctance is a factor, and finance could be a factor for some people.
Wow.
But for those who can afford it and they know about it and they are not doing it, I don't know.
I was actually going to ask Dr. Nyimzi because when you live abroad, it's actually free.
Yeah.
Your GP sends you a letter.
Yeah.
Sends you a letter in every 3 years, and yet some of us, I've spoken to so many ladies in the past weeks, and
that is where the problem is. Having been on both sides of the equation, I'll be upfront with you. Having a pap smear is not pleasant. Nobody wants to be that intimate with a doctor who hasn't bought her lunch.
It's not that unpleasant. No, it's not that unpleasant.
But it's that pill that you take to save yourself in the future. Think about it this way, that it's not unpleasant. Let me get this done for my own good. Yeah. So don't think about the unpleasant as it's not painful. It's not painful at all. But it's emotionally taxing a little bit. So just get your mind in a good headspace and like your gynecologist. If you like your gynecologist and you're comfortable with them, be like, hey, I'm going to get this done.
I think I would rather struggle with liking the gynecologist because I would rather want to do a gynecologist I don't know and I do like.
Okay, so whichever works for you, just psych yourself up that, hey, I'm going to get intimate with somebody I don't want to get intimate with. Let's get it done and over with and move on because it's necessary. Yeah. So don't dwell on the uncomfortable part. Dwell on the fact that this could save my life and it's necessary. Yeah.
The good thing is that there are self-testing kits nowadays. So if you get that in the comfort of your home, you can just take it out and do your own swab, place it back, and go and hand it into your gynae or your doctor. So that makes it much.
And where do we? How about the vaccines? Where do we still go to our doctors for the vaccines?
Yes, for the vaccines, you need to go to the hospital. For the doctors or nurses to administer it.
Very interesting. Thank you all for watching. Those of you out there, as we are being told, there are vaccines now, and then we can also go for the pap smear test. Please, let's be intentional. No matter how expensive it is, the thing is, you cannot afford cancer. There isn't money to treat cancer. So if you're going to save yourself, this has to be done now. Let us be serious about this. Somebody says Pandora sales. I don't know if it's a he or she, but what he's saying is by protection during early sex. Does it mean condom only or other contraceptives? If so, any examples?
You want to go first? The only protective form of the only form of protection that covers all kinds of things is a condom. Outside of the condoms is just hormones that will protect you from pregnancy. And there are some drugs that can lower your chances of getting HIV. But if you want to go like 95%, 98% protection, your best bet is a condom. Male condom, female condom, whichever one you like. If you are having sex with somebody you don't trust, or somebody who is not your permanent partner, you're better off using a condom. You should, to save your life. Or don't have sex. If you cannot put a condom on it, zip it up and wait until you are with one partner, which most
who that one partner may have had multiple partners.
But at least you're with him for life. So after testing or after the first issue, you're not going to get any other issues. So at least if it's that one partner, it's safer. But I would advise you to always go for a condom. All the other protection doesn't protect you from everything else. Just protects you from pregnancy and lowers your chances of getting HIV and other STDs.
Wow. Dr. Sunkwa Mills, do you have anything else to add to
I think she said it all.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But the condom may not cover oral sex and other forms of, intimacy, fingering, all those things are considerations. So just have it in mind,
Oh, so the fingering and all other sexual activities could also...
Yeah, so you need to take the necessary hygienic precautions, in those cases.
My goodness, then that it means this test has to be done even less than 3 years then. Because the last I checked,
when the Bible says avoid sex, the Bible is not trying to be wicked. The Bible is trying to protect you.
Did the Bible say we should avoid sex though?
It's like fornication, adultery. You don't have sex outside of your marriage.
Now that was a scary statement you just made there.
You're right.
Wow.
You almost got into trouble.
I know.
Oh God. Okay. Every other person is just complimenting us, that good stuff, and so we will go on to our second bit. Please, if you have a question out there, do well and put it out there. That's why we are here. We're gonna read this out and talk about it. Now we're going to the emotional journey and the support system that we need. And I would want Dr. Nyimzi to lead us on this, the effect of having a good support network. And well, before the network, what is the emotional journey like, the psychological journey of cancer? You've talked about the fact that it begins with grief and it's a roller coaster, but practically, the person dealing with cancer, what is she battling with apart from the disease?
Yeah. So first of all, the person himself or herself is going through a whole lot of fear and anxiety and the pressure, because it's like every time you sleep and you wake up, you remember that there's something going on in your body that could kill you. There's something that is going on in your body that you're not sure whether you're going to make it for the next few years. So it's a heavy toll on the person himself or herself. And I would advise anybody, whether you have cancer or not, whether you're healthy or not, it's very important for your own mental health to have people in your life that you can trust. There are some people who cannot trust their family members for obvious reasons or for their own personal reasons. But no matter what, it is possible to develop relationships that you can be yourself in. There are a lot of people, when they get cancer, they don't want anybody to know, because people like to judge and people like to talk. People will come up with all kinds of stories. Oh, I heard that he went to borrow money from this person and didn't pay back, and then there's been a curse put on them. So what a lot of people who have cancer do is that they hide. Because one of the symptoms of cancer is unexplained weight loss. And sometimes the weight loss can be so bad that you look sick and you look a little bit deformed. It could also happen in the instance of chemotherapy, when your skin has become dark from the medication, or you've lost all your hair. So it's like physically you become like very vulnerable about your own appearance. So a lot of people don't even want to be seen, let alone allow people into their lives to support them. And some people also want to keep it a secret, because if people know about it, then the talking can start. But it is very important that you have a few people in your corner that you can trust. Let's say your spouse, or like 3 or 4 good friends that you can trust, that you can open up to, who will be a shield or like a support for you. Because if you're going through chemotherapy, you may have to be in the hospital a lot of times. They'll have to admit you time and time again. And after every treatment, you're going to be so weak. A lot of times you're going to be nauseous. You cannot eat. You're always throwing up. You're weak. So you're going to need a lot of physical support. You're going to need a lot of emotional support, somebody to encourage you. Because when it gets to the middle of the battle, after taking so much hits, after going through rounds of chemo, your strength is diminished. So it's important that you have somebody who is able to pick you up. It's important that you have somebody that you can open up to and tell the person, today I don't feel good. Today I'm feeling down. I feel that God doesn't care about me. People who will pray for you, people who will encourage you and tell you that you are almost there. Let's keep pushing. So if you decide that you don't want everybody else to know about it, you should at least have a few people you can trust so that they can help you, driving you to and from the hospital, fetching you groceries when you are down and out, and being able to, maybe you have kids that have to be taken care of, and you have a home that needs cleaning, somebody needs to help you cook. So it's a time that you need to reach out to your support system if you have one. And if you don't have one, it's a good time to open up for help. Some people may want to hide because they feel ashamed, but it's not a good time to hide. Hiding will make your fight more painful. It will make the pressure worse. So if you don't do anything, at least find a few people you can trust, that you allow them into your life to help you, because you're going to need the help to fight.
Thank you. I'll come to those of us who are supporting what we can do, but I don't know if Dr. Sunkwa Mills have something else to add to that as well.
It's important to acknowledge that it's a hard time for anybody to have to handle, such a diagnosis. And people suddenly discover things about themselves they probably didn't even know before. Maybe you suddenly realize that you are the kind who is always looking out for others and not even, taking time to care for your own needs. There are people who are reluctant to tell family and friends just because they feel they will burden people. I mean, they will burden. There are people who are just like that. That, oh, I don't want to burden them, but much as it might be difficult, and this is a time that you have to accept that, well, it is the way it is, you know. Take all the inspiration you can get, take all the help you can get, welcome all the support you can get, because ultimately you need it along the journey. Like Nimzi has said, sometimes you need someone to talk to. There are times when you are just depressed. You need somebody to just tell you that, look, you are doing great. Hold on right there and keep going. And people need to be understanding. Sometimes they just need someone to be there with them, someone to hear them say, I'm tired, I can't do this anymore. And just listen to them quietly and not judge them. I mean, it's a time when they have had so much. They don't need to be judged.
I think we are losing Dr.
Thank
Gifty
you.
Sunkwa Mills
So
again.
in being there for them, let's make sure that we are there to give the right kind of support.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Nimzi. So I think you talked about allowing people in. Now, those of us who are allowed in, to give the support practically, because I've come to a position where sometimes I was probably the main person supporting somebody battling cancer, and to be honest, it got to a point I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to say. You see the person going through the pain, and the next thing you know, it's almost you're praying for the person, but I ended up staying away, because when I go, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. I don't want the person to see the expression on my face that I am afraid, because he or she doesn't need that. So practically, for those of us who could be in the position of supporting other people, how can we support people?
Yes, I think first of all, I would advise that if you've had a diagnosis like this, the best time for you to discuss what you really want out of the situation is before you start any heavy treatments when your body's talking to you. So in the beginning, after you've had the diagnosis, the doctor has gone over everything with you, you've decided what you want to do, how you want to proceed, that'll be a great time to find an advocate. one person that you can trust to make decisions for you if you are incapacitated in any way along the journey. Somebody you can trust that if I'm not in a frame of mind to make a decision, this person should represent me. And once you've done that, you need to be able to go over your wishes with a person at a time where you are in a better frame of mind. You go over your wishes with a person, discuss any issues that may not be clear to them, and be clear what you want. After you've done that, let the person be actively involved in advising you and advocating for you. Because even if they're in the hospital with you and you've been asked a question and you cannot answer, they should be in a position to be able to say what it is you want because you already told them. And then the people that come around to help. The first thing I would advise anybody, don't go in to judge. Like Dr. Sunkwamel said, they are already going through a lot. Just get there and be like, what can I do for you today? Do you want me to wash dishes? Do you want me to just sit here and listen to you? Do you want me to give you a hug? And one thing that has been a part of the story of those who survived is that if they are able to get a normal life as possible, it makes it easier. So don't come in with a long face and come and cry. Oh, today have you eaten? And try to respect their wishes. If you come in and they are not in the mood to talk for that day, just be there. Spend time with them. They're sitting watching TV, sit down and be with them. If you come in and they are chatty, they want to talk to them. Let them lead with what they need. And don't try to impose, oh, I made food for you, you have to eat right now. You only try to encourage them to eat when it's very essential, as in they haven't eaten anything all day. But some people feel like once I cooked for you, you have to eat the food. It shouldn't be like that. Let them tell you what they need, and you do everything in your power to support them. If you come in and you don't know what to say, you can start by saying, I really don't know what to say. What do you want to talk about? How was your day today? Make it about them and be prepared to be embarrassed for their sake. You don't want to embarrass yourself in front of them because you feel that you may say the wrong thing. But don't you see the moment you don't talk too much, you don't make a lot of mistakes. So if you think you don't have anything to say, don't say anything. Just be there. Just act like everything is normal. Can I fetch you something from the store? Can I cook something for you? If they say yes, you run and cook it. Can I do your laundry? You run. If they say yes, you run and you do it. Just check in with them. Check in with them. No judgment and no, oh, you've lost your hair. You're beginning to look like an old person. There should be none of that. Try to put yourself right in the right frame of mind before you get there. If you want to cry, it will be better for you to cry and wipe your tears before you get in there. Because if you're crying in front of them, you're taking away the little energy that they have. But if you get there and they are crying, you can hold them and cry together. Okay, let me sit by you and cry with you today. It will be well. As you tell them it will be well and you shed a few tears, it's fine. Don't shed more tears than they are shedding. And I believe that with the carers, it's very important that one person doesn't take the whole responsibility for taking care of the person. Because it takes a whole lot. So it's the person being the carer needs a break too. So if there are about three people, you can share the duties. Oh, I do it for 3 days. I take a break and you come in. So try to enlist as many people as possible who are able to help, and then decide which jobs are simple that anybody can do and which jobs are sensitive that they want particular people to do. Let's say the person is a woman, your husband is around, you would want your husband for more emotional support than maybe doing the dishes or running the errands. So you can let other people run the errands and then you be there to support your wife emotionally. And then a lot of times the husband himself or the main person taking care of the cancer patient needs a breakthrough. It's very important. Otherwise, they get to a stage where they begin to react. They get angry and they might even unconsciously take it out on the patient. So whoever is taking care of a cancer patient, it's very important that you schedule regular break times for yourself, regular mental health periods for yourself. Go away, do something fun, get a haircut, have a break. Let's say 1 day off a week where you pay somebody to watch the patient so that you can have time off. It rejuvenates you and makes you healthier so that when you're around the person with cancer, you are even of more benefit to them.
Wow. Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much. That's so practical. Dr. Sunkwa Mills, do you want to add to that?
Yimzi has said everything so perfectly well.
Wow.
She said everything so perfectly well. Let's be mindful that at that stage or in that condition, what they need is love, meaning, and value. You know, so be there for them. Just be there for them. And it's extremely important for you to have that respite too. You know, don't think you can handle it all by yourself. As if it is possible, have someone else whom you alternate with so that each person can have a meaningful break for self-care. You can't care for someone unless you yourself are in the right frame of mind. And also, it's helpful when you also try to read and know as much about their condition as possible so that you know what is expected along the journey and you don't get too many surprises. And if you get surprises, you can't go and react in front of the person. You have to, learn how to, manage and grow with the person or go with the person through the various phases. And also remember all the other financial implications that would be involved. When there are family members or people who can support, they should be encouraged to support now. Bring the money now when the person is alive and needs it
Thank
for
you.
chemo, for
Thank
drugs. It takes so much money. Please don't wait till you hear funeral. Otherwise, your money.
Please tell us about it.
Too late. It's really unfair that sometimes people wait. You hear somebody has a cancer and you just shut off. I don't know why some people do that. I don't know whether it's because they cannot handle it themselves. But even if you cannot personally show up, let your money show up. They need so much. They need so much money for this period and this kind of treatment. Don't wait till it's too late.
And some people, I think, are even in a position, maybe naturally, like you mentioned earlier, they are not able to ask for help. Now, even those who are able to ask for help, this is very new to them. They are in a position, they are trying to get their head around this whole thing and the aftermath and where it could end and everything. And so sometimes I think that people around supporting should take initiatives without even being asked. And by that, I don't mean just go and knock on their door and get in. But if you ask questions like, is there anything you need? Like, should I bring you food? I would say no.
Yeah. You're
I
right.
would say no, because like you said earlier, I don't want to bother you.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say no. But if you bring the food, especially when you realize the person has got kids, has got a home that would need cleaning, has got, like, the kids have to be out. The kids have to be out. Their lives shouldn't be in the house just because the parent has got cancer or one of the children have got cancer, and then all the other children have to be stuck at home because parents are not in a position to take them out. So practical things like you taking initiative. Yes, it's good to ask, but ask it in a way that I'm going to offer this. Is that okay with you? I think that is easier than what can I do for you, or should I bring you food? I mean, what do you mean, should you bring me food?
Yeah, that is so true, Chesca. We need to be mindful that this is a thing that doesn't affect just the person, but their family members. If they are children, if, let's say, the mother is affected and she was taking them to school every day, now she may not have the energy to do it all the time anymore. You can offer to pick and drop the children at school, for instance. That is help that would be so much appreciated. So little things. Remember all the people who are affected. Maybe the person was the breadwinner. At this point, he or she can no longer be playing that role as breadwinner. What help can you meet in that respect? So these are some of the ways that we can look at supporting people with with a diagnosis of cancer.
I can't believe our time is so fast spent already.
Yeah.
Oh my God, this is so good. This is so good. We have to do this again. And somebody has a question. The person said, I had oral sex. Yeah, that's Pastor Sandra again. I had oral sex causes mouth cancer. How true is that?
It's true.
Is it?
It's true. It's been on the rise in the past few years.
So
It's
why are
up-
people? Why is it being done then? If we don't know. Well, I didn't know. That's why I said, is it? I didn't know.
I don't think it's our place to tell people do not do it. No, I don't think that is the point. It's just like sex causes a range of disease conditions, HIV, HPV transmission. You don't tell people to stop having sex because of that, but
They
you tell
won't.
them to take the necessary precautions. They won't, forget it. I mean, why should they? So you just advise the necessary precautions. To be
So
taken.
it's true then.
It
It's
is.
true that. Oh, okay. Okay, I hope the person is listening. I hope my sister is listening about it. I mean, we have gone over our time. We said 1.5 hours, and we've done 10 more minutes to it. But so we're gonna close in because there will be a part 2. Honestly, I think I have to bring you on to the part 2 with the other team that are coming on as well, and that's where we're gonna look at the God factor. The question is, where is God in cancer? And I'm glad that we're all Christians here, and you are medical doctors, and your view on things are definitely different from us who are not in that profession, and we are holding on to faith. Where is God in cancer? Where does faith come in? Where do we draw the line? That's the next thing we're going to talk about. And I think that I would still love to have you on because it will be a very great discussion. So yes, I'll connect with you again after this. But finally, I know you prepared very much. Are there other things that we need to know? We have time. Please, let's talk about it a bit. First, Dr. Sunkwa Mills, just tell us, are there any other things that you would let us know about cancer?
Well, for me, in reading the stories of people with cancer, it appears that a cancer diagnosis in many instances has given people permission to live their life to the fullest. It's like suddenly they have this thing before them which redefines them by granting them permission to do the things they were too busy or simply afraid to do. So suddenly they are free to claim their true identity, and they are reminded of the freedom of choice that is theirs and has always been. Now, what I want to say is that you don't need to wait for cancer to bring you to this realization. Live your life already. And that is what I want to leave with our listeners.
Thank you for that. I was speaking to one lady in her 50s, and she's not the only one. She was actually the third person for me to hear who was in her 50s, and we're discussing something, and everything that I said, like, she was like, so what? Ignore them, move on, Chesca, do this, do that. And I kept thinking, no, I can't. They're gonna think, so who are they? And then all of these 3 people made statements like, when you get to my age, when you get to the age 50, there is something that happens to you. You don't care who, not that you don't care about people, but you cease to please human beings.
Exactly.
You don't
And
allow
because it
people
was
to
the
dictate how you live your life. You don't let people
yes, you don't let, exactly, that's the right thing. You don't let anybody dictate how you live, and you're not interested in pleasing people at the expense of yourself or your pleasure. And I remember hearing this, and I was like, you know what, I can't wait to be 50 to do that. Why not start at 40?
do it right now.
Why not? And I'm telling you, since I made up my mind to do that, it's such a beautiful journey to get on.
Yeah.
It's such a, and it's amazing. Sometimes I'll be dealing with people, and they are thinking about the Chesca who was 39 and how sensitive she can be about something, and I have moved on, and it's so liberating. It's so liberating.
Yeah.
It's so liberating. So what you have said, I mean, that adds to what I have learned. It's so true. I'm actually gonna sit down and list the things that I would have done if I had the time to do, or if I had a month, or if I had 2 months to do, and get it going. Thank you so much, Dr. Sunkwa Mills. Dr. Nyimzi, what have you got to tell us before we finish?
For me, one thing that has become really important is that cancer treatment can be very scary. It's very important that you go with a doctor that you really can trust, so that you can take their advice with a whole heart, because it's difficult to trust somebody who is giving you treatments that's making you feel bad. But if you trusted him from the beginning, not be doubting in the middle of the road and being like, is he trying to kill me? Can I trust him to do what he needs to do? So when you go with a doctor, go with a doctor that you can trust. Go with a doctor that has a track record for having good results in that particular cancer that you're dealing with. And don't get to a point where you think your doctor is against you, because at that point it's more important to switch doctors than to keep going, because that in itself is going to suck a lot of your mental energy. And there are some people who also feel like, okay, if this chemo is not making me feel good, let me just go for some other kind of new age medicine, some kind of herb, some kind of concoctions. If that is your decision, you really need to be careful, because once you commit to the medical treatment, you need to be really committed to get the best results out of it. Because some people get to the middle of the treatment, they start to feel better, and then they just abscond. They don't even come back repeat treatment, because they feel like, oh, I'm getting better. Oh, everything is fine. I need to get this business sorted out. Let me go do that one instead of focusing on the treatment. But you see, with cancer treatment, there are windows of opportunity where the treatment works better, that you have to add an intervention. If that treatment if that period is allowed to elapse, you could go into even more severe remission. So if you want to stick to the medical treatment, trust your doctor, take his advice. If you don't trust him, switch doctors to make
Can
it
you do that? Can you do that? Can you actually request that?
as long as you're paying. Well, for some people, it may be that other doctors may not be in their network, or this is the doctor that they are with. But even for the doctors that are in the network, find the one that you can trust within that network. Because when it becomes an issue of you don't trust your doctor, it becomes a very difficult situation. So find one you trust so that you can adhere to your medical treatment. Because when it gets tough, you're going to have to try and push through. That's what.
Thank you so much, ladies. Thank you for this knowledge that you have imparted into us. I mean, it's such a pleasure to have you on, and thank you, Facebook family, for joining us. Thank you for your questions. Please share. Oh, somebody has sent a message. I think my messages are delaying on Facebook. That's why, because they are coming in very late. If you can permit me, let me just read a few more questions and then we can round it up. Somebody says, Pandora Sales says, okay, before I go on Pandora Sales, Dr. Nyimzi Irabold says hello to you. Now the question is, I am a parent, just curious. Oh, Dr. Nyimze, did she unmute herself, or have I unmuted her?
I don't know, but she's online, so
She is online. Okay.
I'm back.
Oh, okay. Okay, I thought that was me. Right, I've got somebody on, Dr. Sunkwa Mills. If you could help. The person says, I am a parent, just curious. What role do we have as parents in helping to mitigate this issue on early teen sex? We often preach only abstinence to our teens and not give them alternatives such as use of condom. If they decide to engage in sex, are we not doing a disservice to our own kids for withholding vital information from them? Bright Nkrumah Takoma Wa is asking this question.
that is a whole discussion from Chesca. It could take another complete
you would have to round it up in few minutes for us, however much you can.
But parents definitely have a role, and you should start tackling this early rather than late, because our children hear a lot from their peers, and if you don't empower them with the right information, what they get out there, whether right or wrong, is what will influence them. So decide what you want your children to know as early as possible, and start engaging them already, and be a parent that they can trust and come to have discussions with you when they have doubts and when they have challenges. I mean, build a relationship with them. That is so key in this journey when it comes to, educating them about sex or empowering them or guiding them. Having a relationship with them is the foundation.
Should we give them the condoms?
I won't say a yes or no, because it's a discussion I would want to put out, with all the various sides of it. So yeah, let's have another session for that.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Nyimzi. What's your take?
I'll just add that as your children grow up, they'll have questions. Kids don't like talking about sex. They're just curious. So it's important that you give them age-appropriate answers. I remember at a time my 5-year-old asked me, "Mommy, how you said I was in your belly. How did I get out of your belly?" I said, "I just went to the hospital and the doctor took you out." So as they keep asking, you keep giving more info. And the last time my daughter saw a sanitary towels in my bathroom and she asked me, "What do you use these for?" I was like, "Women have periods." She just backed off. So just psych yourself that you will tell them the truth, because sometimes even by the time they're asking you the question, they already know the answer. They've heard it from somewhere. So they want to know if you're going to lie to them or tell them the truth. Or if you give them an answer that is not satisfactory to them, next time they are not asking you, they're asking somebody else. So try to be age appropriate in answering their questions, but be totally honest. Sometimes you get it wrong, sometimes you get it right. Don't go all out giving them all kinds of pornographic stuff, but just be open and honest. And then they can trust you to bring all their questions to you. And it depends, like Dr. Sunko Mills was saying. If your kid is a bad kid, I'd rather give you a condom than let you go get pregnant. But you have to know what works best for your family. And you pray that you've trained them good enough that they wouldn't be going around sleeping around. So you pray for your kids, do everything in your power to train them right. But ultimately, you should know the kid and know what will be best in each individual situation.
Thank you so much.
And the opportunities would come. They would ask the questions. You should be one step ahead and prepare for that. And when you empower them and have an impression on them so much, at a point, it wouldn't even matter whether you hand them a condom or not, because you have engaged them so much that they know what it means.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you this before we finish.
I could debate that whole topic that there is nothing like a bad kid, but we don't have the time. Yeah.
I'll tell you a story whilst we finish off, where Ken and I were going to talk to the boys about sex. And we sat both of them down and we talked about it. We decided to sit with both of them together, even though the other one is older. The middle one seems to be more enlightened than the older one in terms of things like that. And the minute we like, "Guys, do you know what sex is?" And he went, "Wasn't that how you made us?" I almost had a heart attack.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't want to ask, "What do you mean by that?" I just had to say what I had to say, because wasn't that how we were made?
They know a
That's
lot.
his answer. So they know it. But we need to guide them before they hear it somewhere else. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Sugwa Mills. I know your schedule, so it's such a pleasure to have you here. And Dr. Nyimzi Edijemfi, it's because you are way behind us in time, in terms of time scale, and here you are sitting with us. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. And thank you all, Facebook family. I think we can't take any more questions at the moment. There will be a part 2, as I've said. I'll confirm the date. I'm sure about the date, but I still want a proper confirmation before I put it out there. And if you have watched this video, if you've come across it, please share it on your wall, because you never know who is going to help. I can't believe that I'm sitting here and today is the first time I'm hearing about the vaccine. So there is so much, and I am getting to know that oral sex can lead to mouth cancer.
Risk factor.
It is a factor, yes, a risk factor.
Risk factor, yeah.
A risk factor. So there is so much we can learn about this. There are so many things we are ignorant of. Please just share this video on your page, share with a friend, share with some friends, share it, send it to their messenger inbox, and let them get this knowledge, because we all need it. Cancer is not a sentence. When detected early, something can be done about it, and we could save so many lives. Thank you so much for spending your time with us tonight. It's 9 o'clock, and I don't think I want to go beyond 9 o'clock. God bless you. Thank you, doctors, for your time with me. And please stay with me just 2 seconds. I'm ending on Facebook, and then we would have a chat behind Facebook for just a minute. So all too soon, our session has come to an end. Thank you, Facebook family. I am glad you joined us, and we appreciate your time with us. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Be intentional about everything in life.